move on to the next question?
Yeah, this is Philip Gray from the Clarksville Leaf Chronicle. I cover Fort Campbell. I'm a Rakistan veteran of Iraq. It's come to have a great deal of appreciation for Currahee history since the Currahees have come back to Fort Campbell and attended their reunion over here. Were any of you gentlemen at the reunion this past fall?
No.
This question is for Richard. Richard, Alton Mabb, the writer that found the documents in the National Archive over in College Park, he gave you a great deal of credit for helping to push forward the Medal of Honor nomination and get it restarted. Could you describe a little bit of your part in that?
Well, I mean, after I was wounded in Cambodia along with 27 other soldiers. There were George Koziel, John Abood, and I were in the hospital. After we were released from the hospital, a couple of weeks after we entered, George Koziel began to describe what he saw in the firefight and Leslie's heroic actions and everything he did that day. He was the sole witness of Leslie Sabo's actions. After George described what he had seen, he asked that we would support his actions. Leslie was about 15 meters to my left during the firefight. I knew something was going on over there. Leslie was distributing ammunition. We were running low. We were in the firefight for 5 hours against a heavy, well-armed enemy force. We had been in skirmishes before, but this was the first time that these people were going to stay, and for the first time, they were matching our firepower round for round, and it got real thick there, real fast. Anyway. Leslie was, after about the first hour and a half, Leslie, we're running low on ammunition. George said that Leslie was low crawling, passing ammunition out, probably taking it off of people that had already been hit and killed, and passing ammunition to the other members of the people around him. I signed an affidavit stating that where I was and where Leslie's position was in relation to mine, and basically supported what George had stated in relation to Leslie's activities that day, his actions. So, yes, I pushed for it. So did John Abood. Signed an affidavit, another person that was in my platoon, and no, we all pushed for Leslie to receive this award. There's no question about it. Of course, Tony Mabb took the bull by the horns and did the extensive research in the National Archives. But we've all supported this award for Leslie.
Thank you very much, Richard. Jim, you had, I guess you were the one who wrote up the initial nomination for the Congressional Medal of Honor for Specialist Sabo. Is that the fact?
I can't take credit for that. George Koziel wrote the original nomination along with Colonel Jim Jaggers, who's now a retired Major General.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
May I add something or interject something?
Yes, sir.
Please don't call it the Congressional Medal of Honor. It's called the Medal of Honor. Nowhere in the legislation is it referred to as the Congressional Medal of Honor. So
okay, sir.
And the media get that wrong often anyway. So you can get it right.
All righty. I certainly will. In the intervening years, was there ever, did you ever stop and think about why didn't this get moved forward? Why did we never hear anything about this again? Or is it just because of the you were soldiers, you were in combat, a lot of stuff going on politically, a lot of stuff when you came back to the States. Did it just kind of, fade into the background until the article came out?
Well, at that time, this is Rick Clinton, by the way. At that time, we were OPCON to the 4th Division, and we were the only battalion of the 101st to go into Cambodia. Due to that fact, I'm sure that the paperwork was misplaced and was just summarily lost for a long period of time. As Rich mentioned earlier, Tony Mabb found it in the archives of here in Washington, and somehow he and I connected back in 2001, and I led him to George Koziel, Rich Rios, and a couple of other guys, and I also received a copy of this citation, which I then shared with Rose and her family. They had no idea how Les had actually died. All they told her was that he had been killed by enemy fire, and that was a very short summation of what happened. So it's unfortunate that his parents never knew what a hero he was, but at least the rest of his family does.
We weren't passive about it. Since Tony kicked it in gear again, people in our company have talked to at least 6 different congressmen. They've talked to the Department of the Army, the Department of Defense, and we've been actively pushing this. Several of our people have been very active, and in fact, we've been told more than once, this isn't proper for you to be questioning, but we learned in the infantry, if you want to get it done, do it your way.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. I did 23 years in the infantry. Always better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
Well
said.
That. Well said.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I very much appreciate this, and we will be getting a transcript of this, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Charles, did you have a follow-up question or additional questions?
I'll pass over to the next person. I don't want to monopolize the time.
Thank you. Chuck, did you have another question?
Yeah, I did. I'm probably the only person who has never served giving these questions, so but please excuse me if I'm a little slow in understanding some of the stuff. Was there something different about this particular day, the combat this particular day, than you had seen in any other day? Was there something that made this day unique, combat-wise, that would inspire Larry Sabo to take the actions that he did?
Rich hit it right on the head. Usually in a firefight, it just lasts a few minutes, then the enemy backed off in Vietnam. But as Rich said, this thing went on for hours, and the enemy did not back off. You guys may want to comment on how you feel about firefights in Vietnam and Cambodia and this particular firefight.
Most of our firefights were short. We pretty much gained superiority in most cases by playing ground fire and calling in our gunships and air support. Most of our combat was against BC. BC is a guerrilla force, and much like our countrymen did in the Revolutionary War, they would hit and then run, trying to inflict casualties as quickly as possible and be gone. The Cambodia thing was entirely different, as has been noted. It was a huge enemy force, which it's probably one of the only times that we were outmanned and outgunned, but still prevailed. So.
This is Richard Rios. Keep in mind that, when we made the combat assault, we made contact immediately with the enemy, and we made contact every day with the enemy thereafter, up to May 10th. We burned hooches, we killed pigs. The enemy Cambodia was a haven for the NVA. They hadn't been disturbed other than the bombings, but they had never seen the enemy force on their real estate. As I said, we made contact every day. They were there in full force. We burned their hooches. There were pigs, chickens. There was tons of rice. And seeing that, we knew that it was not just a small squad or a platoon that was in the area. We continued to make contact on day 3, 4, 5, and then the big one on May 10th. So the enemy was all over Cambodia. They had been totally undisturbed, and here comes a third of the 506 Infantry, and we kind of tried to mess them up as much as possible. But they were a formidable force, no question.
So on May 10th, then basically you ran into prepared positions that they weren't that they had prepared for many years.
Well, yes, they had bunkers. I mean, they were established, and we just we came in and disturbed them as best we could.
It was a battalion base camp, and as Rich has said, the real estate was theirs. They had been there for quite some time, and we were outmanned at least 2 to 1.
And when did you overrun the base camp, or did you?
We did not overrun the base camp. We were fighting to save people. Our first platoon had been held in reserve. They came forward at dusk, and we fully expected a strong attack that night. It didn't happen. Now, that next morning, we were fired upon again by the people in the base camp, but another company later that day, on May 11th, actually went into the base camp. We'd been pretty well evacuated by that time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dale, did you have follow-up questions?
I did, gentlemen. Thank you so much for this discussion. My question is what it was like to be there yesterday when the Medal of Honor was presented posthumously to Rose. What were the emotions and your response to that event?
This is Bruce D'Ancisia. I've never seen anything like that where people stood up and applauded us. It was something that overcame me instantly when the President of the United States said, "I want to thank you, gentlemen, for what we did." And that was probably one of the few times I've ever heard that in 43 years. I mean, a lot of people are now finally saying, welcome home and everything, but it's normally it's another Vietnam veteran saying it. But when this room stood up and did this, it was, I don't know how to explain it. I'll never have a better day in my life than that, I don't think.
This is Rick Clanton. Emotionally, it was a roller coaster, to say the least, highs and lows, because it brings back the memories of others that we lost. But it was something that the high was seeing something we worked for so long come to fruition, and to see Rose and the Sabo family receive this honor on behalf of Leslie was just beyond gratifying to us. And as Bruce said, it was extremely memorable. I'll never forget it, and I thoroughly thank the fact that he did recognize the men of Bravo Company, which we now call Bravo Family, and it was very up and down day emotionally, but all in all, a wonderful day.
What are your thoughts, Rich?
Well, it was definitely an emotional event. We lost 18 people in 100 days from January 28th to May 10th. And we feel like this Medal of Honor is not for Leslie Sabo exclusively, but we recognize the other 17 young men that didn't get to come home and grow old. So it was definitely a big day, a big event. And like Bruce said, when the president said, "I'd like for the men of Bravo Company to stand," that was very emotional. Keep in mind, we were the only battalion of the 101st Airborne Division to go into Cambodia. We were, our 3rd of the 506 was like the adopted red-headed child of the division. They treated us like a rental car. I mean, wherever the action was the hottest, that's where we were deployed. That's where we moved to. We worked in the Central Highlands. Ho Chi Minh said, "Whoever controls the Central Highlands will control South Vietnam." And the Central Highlands was definitely hot. We worked from the east part of the Central Highlands in Phan Thiet, the South China Sea, all the way over to Pleiku and across the border into Cambodia. So that we were very busy in South Vietnam and Cambodia the whole time.
Wow, thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, did you have any?
Yeah, this is Phil. Rich, it's funny you mentioned the rental car thing. I heard the same thing from some of the Hamburger Hill vets, the 3rd of the 187th guys. I guess that was something that happened, to them as well. They were basically just plugged into wherever they needed somebody, and talking to those men was just absolutely amazing last week. They had their reunion over here at Fort Campbell. But when this ceremony was going on, did you guys think about George and how he would have felt about this? Because George never got to see the moment, but probably more than any one single individual was most responsible for the moment happening. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about George and maybe, when he passed, did he have a pretty good idea that this was going to happen in 2008?
George was there.
He was AWOL from heaven that day.
And George is always with us.
Oh, good.
We think of him every day. George was a special person. He was a close friend of mine and Rich's especially, because we all got to the company around the same time. This is Rick Clanton, by the way.
Yep.
But, George was there, and Les was there, and the other guys that we lost were in attendance, I can guarantee it. At least I certainly hope so.
Every reunion, all of our 18 are honored, and George's name is always mentioned, even though he didn't die in combat. And last night, as we do in every reunion, the song that George wrote about Bravo Company was sung.
Oh, I'll tell you, I felt chills down my spine as you were saying that, because, people may think it's silly, but those of us who have, been in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, I think there is a brotherhood to this. There's a bond that you form that is unlike anything from college. It's unlike anything from high school. It's unlike anything from any place you'll ever work or anything you'll ever do. And that bond it really is an enduring thing, isn't it? Even after 30 years, like you said, you're able to talk to these men and just pick up right from where you left off. That
Right.
Doesn't amaze me at all, because I've talked to other people who said the same thing.
Thank you. Rob, are you still on the line? Did you have additional questions?
I just got a question, just backing up a little bit. Going into Cambodia, I had a Marine friend that went into Cambodia, and it was like a no-no. I mean, nobody was supposed to know. I know it was a secret mission. know how dangerous this might become from both sides of the border? Because we were saying nobody's going in. I think at the time they said nobody's going into Cambodia, and it was obvious it had to be done. I guess you guys were briefed pretty well when you were going in there, or just because you guys were you were sent to wherever the most danger was, that was just part of your life?
I will say, just from my own experience, I didn't go with them on the initial insertion, but they weren't told until we were on the tarmac ready to load at where we were going. I'm sure Captain Jim knew, and some of the officers, but the other guys didn't know, and we found out on the tarmac, if I'm not mistaken.
The night before the invasion into Cambodia, we flew over, each company commander and a couple other people, to pick out where we were going to be inserted. Well, unfortunately, the day of the combat assault, those areas were hot, so we were diverted several miles away for our insertion. We had the wrong maps. The fire base didn't know where they were. We weren't sure where we were. And for the first week, we were pretty well operating in the blind. We were given a vector by the battalion commander, and we took that compass heading and kept walking until we had combat contact, or he changed directions on us. So it was not the perfect battle plan by a long way.
Yeah.
Let me interject something again here.
Yeah.
On May 10th, when we walked into the ambush, 3rd Platoon and 2nd Platoon were involved going down the trail. I would say that Bravo Company Commander Jim Waybright had made the wise decision to leave 1st Platoon in the rear as a reserve at our starting point. We left our rucksacks there, and then that's when all we took was our weapons and plenty of ammo. Well, not enough, obviously, eventually. But my point is that had Captain Waybright not ordered 1st Platoon to stay behind, we could have very well been overrun at some point in that 5-hour firefight due to being outnumbered by the enemy. When after about an hour and a half or 2 hours into the firefight, 1st Platoon did come in like the old cavalry in the Western movies. They came in with full force to rescue and help us, 2nd and 3rd Platoon, in this firefight, and that definitely disturbed the enemy. It broke them, and again, had it not been for this decision to leave that element behind in the rear, in reserve, our KIAs, and if not, could have been a lot higher, and perhaps, and we'll never know, we could have been easily overrun, because they could have just come on with full force. But fortunately, that did not happen. So there was a wise decision that was made there initially, and I've always given Captain Waybright credit for that, for making that decision. I think that's the reason a lot of us are alive today.
Thank you.
Yes, does someone have an additional question?
Well, I'll tell you, I thank you so much for the opportunity for you guys putting this together. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your story, and I'm sure that over here in Clarksville, Tennessee, that's a huge interest, as you might understand, among the Currahees and the rest of the 101st Airborne Division. I believe Leslie was the 21st Congressional Medal, Medal of Honor recipient for the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam, and that is something that means a whole lot to folks over here. You guys mean a whole lot to folks over here, and we just thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of good Tennessee men in our outfit.
Ashley, I have a question.
Yes.
Just real quickly, gentlemen, does this place where you had this battle, does it have a name, a hamlet name, or something that would hill
the name-
number, you know, an identifier of some kind?
The location is known as the Sason Valley, Cambodia. That's S-E, and that's separate word, S-A-N, Valley. That's the sector, probably 20 miles immediately west of Pleiku. If you can get a map, and you'll see that that area.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dale, did you have a follow-up question before you wrap up?
No, thank you. That was wonderful. Appreciate the time.
No problem. And any other final questions?
No, thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your great questions and participation, and echoing what everyone on the line said. Thank you, gentlemen, for participating with us today. I'm talking about your service and your memories of Specialist Force Sabo. For everyone else, I know, Chuck, you had some questions about the exact locations. You could visit Specialist Force Sabo's website at www.army.mil/Medal of Honor/Sabo to view photos, interviews, and to find additional information. As we talked about already, there'll be an audio file and transcript for this roundtable, and as soon as they are available, I will provide those to everyone on the line. Again, thank you for your participation, and this completes our roundtable today.